So when you create a Customtkinter checkbox, by default, it will look like this in the dark mode. So if you are using the dark mode, the default theme will be blue and the combo or the checkbox will look like this. So these are the values in this box that are actually applied on a default checkbox. Here, the box labeled specific properties is the one that contains the values that are going to be applied to this checkbox. So I'm using this library in order just to show the properties or to visualize the different properties and their values. But there is actually a code, so you have to write the code. In fact, you can use the library, but that's not the object of this video. So here we have our simple code in which we created the checkbox. By default, if you pack it, you will have this checkbox with these values. Even if I change or configure to be sure that I'm using the default values, you can see here when I use these default values, you will have this checkbox, the default checkbox. And you can see here again. So this is another checkbox that I'm creating. If I add it with the configured one, the default one, they have the same values, the same appearance, etc. So these are the default configuration values of the checkbox. So you can see here the text, the font, weight, height, not weight, height, width, border width, corner radius, etc, etc. So we are going to go through all these properties in order to change our checkbox, in order to customize it. So in here, we want to change this checkbox to make it look like this one. So to do this, I'm going to work in this style. Again, I'm using the library. You do not have to understand this. Just understand or just focus on the properties and how they change the appearance of the checkbox. So now we will start with the customization. We are going to start with the simple stuff, or the first thing. Custom the text. So we are going to customize the text as customized CTkCheckBox. You can preview. Here's the text. So you can customize the text. Here we are also going to customize the font. By default, in blue theme, all the Windows widgets, dark mode or light mode will have this font size and this weight. We are going to use an locally installed fonts that I've installed here in my system. Museo Moderno. I will give it the size 20 and the weight bold. So you can configure the font, these three values of the font of checkbox. So we have our font customized. We can also customize the height and the width. For example, here I'm setting the height of the 50 and the width to 350. There's an issue here. If I do so, we are not really going to be able to see the actual size. So what we will do, we will change the background color. So to do that, I'm using these colors that I found from using the colors tool. I don't know if we say coolers or colors. So the colors tool. So this is the palette I've selected. So we are going to use this color as the background color. So if I preview, now we can see the width. If I change the width, for example, set it to 20, you can see, or the height to 20. In fact, I set it to 200. So if I set the height to 200, now we can see how the height changed the checkbox. So previously we had the 5 equal to 50. So here is the height. Now the border width. So the border width by default it's equal to 3. We are going to set it to 5. You can see here the border actually refers to the border of the checkbox. Here if I set it to 10, it will almost fill the entire checkbox. And I will set it back to 5. So this is our border, our new border. The corner radius, so this the radius of the checkbox. So if I have this small checkbox, if I set the corner radius to 10, for example, you can see it's almost a circle. If I set it to 20, we actually will have a perfect circle. The background color, BG color, we've already changed it, this color right there. Now the text color when disabled, so you can also, if the state of the checkbox is disabled, we can set or define a specific text color. So here it's not obvious. So if I set it to red, for example, I click on preview, we can't see it. So what will I have to do is to change the state of my checkbox. So I'm going to set it to disabled and I preview. You can see here is the color of the disabled checkbox, but instead of red, of course, it's not really good for disabled color. Or you can, if you wish, use red. So I'm going to use dark gray. Here is my dark gray for my text color when checkbox is disabled. I will set it back to normal. So we will have our values. Then the next properties, the checkbox width. Now we are changing the width and the height of the actual checkbox, the box where you check. So, or where you put check mark, or where the check mark is put. So the checkbox width, I'm going to set it to 50. If I see this, you can see the width changed. I will also change the height with the same value, 50. Since we increase the width and the height, we no longer have a circle set. So what I will have to do is to change the corner radius, and now I have my circle back again. Now the state is normal, we will keep it to normal. So this is another attribute property that you can use to customize your checkbox. The text color, the text of the checkbox displayed here. So this is the default value for dark mode, of course in blue team. So I'm going to change the text color. In fact, I don't recall the text color I've used, so I'm using this one, okay? So we will use this color as our text color. Preview, we can change now text color. And the hover color, you can see here when I hover over the checkbox, the color change. This is also the default color. We will change also our hover color to this color, this one. So this is the previous color or the default one. Now the default or the new one, you can see here the color is different. The border color, we are going to set it also to the same color as the hover color. So we had the default one, now we are setting it to this one. You can see here the border color actually refer to the border of the actual box of the checkbox. So the color of the checkbox change, it's equal to the hover color. Now we have the FG color. So the FG color, I'm setting it to this one, this pearl aqua color. So we will try it right now. You can see here the FG color. It's not obvious, but when you check the checkbox, you can see the color is visible. So the FG color is the color of the checkbox when it is checked. So to remember the previous values, or to see the previous value was this one. So when you click on the checkbox, you have actually this color, this blue color. When you disable it, it's transparent. So now you have this color. So now we will see, we'll go back to our checkbox. So we continue. So we have our color, FG color, which is the color of the checkbox when it is checked. We can now also change the check mark color. You can see here the white color on this aqua color is not really visible. So we are going to use our background color, or the color we set for the background, as our checkbox or check mark color. So you can see here, if I click on it, the color of the check mark changed. To have a better checkbox, we can remove the background color or set it to transparent here. So I'm setting it back to transparent, and you can see here the new customize checkbox. Back again in our code. So this was the different configuration of the checkbox. You can see here all the values we used to customize our checkbox. This is how you customize it. So you create your CTK or your window, you create your checkbox. You can directly, while creating the checkbox, set the values, or use configure methods to configure the values. So here is the actual code, and if I run the code, so here is the new color. So if I set it, or the new customize checkbox, if I set it here, the background color to transparent, we will have a better. So you can see here the new checkbox. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.